So I want to take a moment here to give everybody my case against Doomerism, or what I like to call political nihilism, which is this idea that, well, things are so screwed, things are so messed up, things are so terrible, what's even the point? I'm totally checking out mentally. I'm Dunsky. It's a wrap. And it's almost like they view you as naive if you think there's even a little bit of hope or are trying to strategize to get us to a place where we have a better situation. Those are the doomers. Those are the political nihilists. And one of the things they like to do is watch from afar and judge everybody who's involved in one way or another, almost as like you're simpletons for even being involved. Because obviously with my superior intellect, I'm sitting on the sidelines and watching and judging, and all of you have not reached my amazing, genius, brilliant level where I see the whole picture and none of you silly people do. These are the doomers. These are the nihilists. So my case against Doomerism is very straightforward. So first, a few points as to how it's actually not even necessarily as bad as we all think it is. Now, don't get it twisted. It's bad. Like, I'm not trying to, say puppies and rainbows and let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya here. That'd be ridiculous. But we just got the story recently. John Deere workers went on strike. Tens of thousands of John Deere workers went on strike. And they won huge concessions. They won concessions in a contract that I thought they would accept. They didn't. They voted it down. I think 51-49, they voted it down. And John Deere said, we're walking away from the table. We're done with these people. Then a couple days later, they said, did we say we're walking away? I mean, what happened? Well, me and Craig was down by the Safeway and the sun was in my eyes, and now we're back at the table. Shh. And so they came back to the table, and then the John Deere workers got even more out of them. So they got an immediate pay raise, doubled to 10%, 2 future 5% raises, cost of living adjustments now when they didn't have them previously, an $8,500 bonus, pensions restored for new hires, and in retirement, they got up to $250 a month extra and $2,000 bonus per year extra of service. So they got so much in this strike, and they were willing to stand out there in the cold, in solidarity, hand in hand, and achieve a massive win. A massive win. So this is, for the first time in a long time, a labor union actually notching a tremendous victory. I mean, really, ever since Reagan and onward, there's been a war on labor unions. They've been playing defense. But as Jonah Furman, the labor reporter, now says, no. Now we're witnessing an era. We're seeing a sea change. Now they're going on offense. And so the next thing that they're going to try to get, probably in the next round of negotiations, contract negotiations, is to get rid of the two-tier 1997 the two-tier system that they had, where like new workers didn't get the same benefits as the old workers, but now the old workers want to stand in solidarity with the young workers and say, no, everybody gets the same benefits. So this is beautiful. Now, that's one piece. There's also a bunch of other strikes going on. And, solidarity to the strikers, and I hope that they win great terms. Because it's not a coincidence that when labor unions were the strongest in our country, we had the healthiest working class and middle class. There's a direct correlation between unionization rate and how well the working class does. So it's not all bad. Now we're seeing some shifting in the right direction. People are taking matters into their own hands with their fellow workers and standing in solidarity and getting more, getting a bigger piece of the pie that they deserve. Now, beyond that, here's another piece of positive information. In the last election, remember when it was McAuliffe versus Youngkin in Virginia? There were some other elections that were going on that day, and the DSA had endorsed a bunch of candidates, and 69% of the candidates won that night. Now, this was probably more the local level, state level stuff, but that's great. That's good news. So that's another thing to keep in mind as we go through all the issues here. So those are the two pieces of very positive information that, hey, there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, now, what do we do moving forward? I have a lot of answers to this question. One of the simplest ones is this. You have to elect an enforcer to Congress. What's an enforcer? An enforcer is somebody who actually agrees on all the policy stuff that we talk about on this show all the time. But more importantly, not only are they with us on policy, they have that crucial leadership quality that all the lefties in Congress don't have and completely lack. And, I don't care if I'm hurting any of their feelings. Some of them watch this show. But you need a leader who's willing to take the fire from the media, from Democratic leadership, and from the Republicans. And from my analysis of the situation, every time there's one lefty who says, you know what, I'm going to go out on a limb and do this thing, then you get like 8 of them that follow. They're like, yeah, me too, me too. But it always takes somebody with courage to do the right thing in the first place, and somebody who's willing to be hated to do it, willing to get all this crap from elites. And they're very rarely ever willing to do that now. So a good example I could think of is, and this is not even one that I necessarily agree with, but it illustrates the point well. So Cori Bush called for anybody who questioned the results of the election in Congress, that they should be expelled. Basically not allowed in Congress anymore. No longer Congress people. Now, behind the scenes, when that idea was being floated around, virtually everybody was like, I don't want to do that. It took one person, Cori Bush, to say, actually, I do want to do that. She went out there and made that argument. And then like a bunch of other left Congress people were like, I want to jump in front of that parade. I want to lead, because Cori Bush had gotten some like positive press over that. And so they're like, okay, yeah, now I'm on board with that. And so what we need is an enforcer, somebody who's not only correct on the policy issues, but somebody who's going to lead. Because here's the thing, sometimes you go out on a limb and you do get shit on, not just by Democratic leadership, but also by Republicans, and most importantly, the media. And so if we could just get one enforcer in there, you'd be surprised how many people follow when there's a leader. So if there was a leader who gave a press conference, who's a Democratic representative, who said, listen, Joe Biden, we were talking about $7 trillion, $6 trillion bill. We compromised to $3.5 trillion. Now you want our vote for a $1.9 trillion bill? Wrong. My hard line is $2 trillion, but hey, you want my vote? Listen, I'm going to make it very simple. Here's a list of our demands. You only get our vote, me and my bloc. You only get our vote if you do these executive orders. Legalize marijuana, change it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 5. Free every federal nonviolent drug offender. Do that right now. Eliminate all student loan debt. Pardon Stephen Donziger. Pardon Julian Assange. Pardon, Edward Snowden. Pardon Daniel Hale. Do a rolling student loan forgiveness executive order where you effectively just implemented free college, because you say whatever loans you take out, federal government's going to pay for it. Here's my list. I have 10 executive orders. If you want my vote, if you want your agenda to get through, this is what you need to do. If not, I don't want to hear it. I'm out. Now, if you do that, all of a sudden the media is going to kick into gear. They're going to say, oh, this person's with the Republicans. This person is an obstructionist. This person is an extremist, so on and so forth. And the media will shit on you nonstop. But you know what? The people will actually be with you. And, I mean, you also make a name for yourself nationally if you do something like this. But as long as you can, if you have a leader, I guarantee you that person can get a group of 7 or 8 to follow suit. And then all of a sudden you can block any legislation you want. You can make demands. This is the idea of a left Tea Party. It's what we tried to do with Justice Democrats, but all the people we got in there, none of them are leaders. None of them are leaders. And so they get pushed around and their eyes spit in and they're like, okay, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. May I have another, please? And it's pathetic. So that's one thing. Just one enforcer would change the game in Washington. That's one point. Okay, next. Direct issue advocacy at the state level, the local level, and the federal level. If you're sitting on the sidelines, I don't know why you are. What issue do you care most about? Legalizing weed? Get involved with direct issue advocacy. Try to get a vote on it in your state to have legalized marijuana if it's not already legal. Fill in the blank. Healthcare? You're Medicare for all activists? Let's say you live in a random state. You live in North Dakota. Okay, let's get a group together, start lobbying to try to get single payer passed in North Dakota. Meet with your representatives. Don't take no for an answer. Find a way. Direct issue advocacy is super important. And at the state level, they'll meet with you. At the city level, they'll meet with you. So whatever your issue is, I don't care what it is. Get involved. Direct issue advocacy is always helpful. Now, beyond that, and this is kind of the, I'll say this before I get to the big whomper. The other thing we need to do on the left is build solidarity with fellow lefties and expand the coalition, and don't get in the way of good work or naysay from the sidelines. So this is what we've really lost sight of on the left, is solidarity. That people might not agree with you on 100% of things, doesn't matter. You welcome them in with open arms, you could talk it out among friends, and you build that solidarity, and don't just sit on the sidelines and lob bombs and act like everybody's stupid because they give a shit and they want to make a change and they're trying, even if it's a long shot. So that building solidarity is important, because right now, you see, there's zero solidarity on the left. Everybody's sniping at everybody else. Everybody hates everybody else. Well, that's going to get us nowhere. But now the big whomper. The reason why it makes sense to never give up, even when the going gets tough, is because there's always the Hail Mary pass that 100% would work. And what I mean by that is the big dog. If you could actually get a lefty elected to the presidency, people actually understate how powerful the president of the United States is. It's understated by people. Because, we have checks and balances, and, you have the, what are you going to do when the legislative branch butts heads and then the judicial branch overturns your stuff? And, I mean, it's just, you don't have that much power. You can't do it on your own. Bullshit, you can't do it on your own. So here's a list that I compiled for you with help from the American Prospect, David Dayen's outlet, where he made a list of, hey, here's all the things the president can do on his or her own. Free every nonviolent drug offender in the country. Legalize marijuana. Eliminate all student loan debt. Pardon Assange, Snowden, Donziger, Daniel Hale. End the wars. You can end all the wars as the commander-in-chief. Close Guantanamo Bay. You could do free college by doing a rolling student loan debt elimination. Cut drug prices. You could do that on your own. You could use Section 1881A of the Social Security Act to allow access to Medicare for individuals subject to an environmental exposure of COVID-19. That's just a long-winded way of saying you could, through executive order, give everybody in the healthcare country. My dyslexia showed up. Give everybody in the country healthcare. You can do it through executive order. And we know how you could do it as well, where it's legal. You can bar fossil fuel drilling and mining on federal lands and in oceans. You can commute the sentences of all federal prisoners on death row. You could get back into the Iran deal. You can stop sanctioning Venezuela and other countries. You can reverse executive orders that broaden the definition of banking and gave us a lot more risk and casino capitalism in our system. You could close the carried interest loophole. You can do postal banking, which is actually a very important idea that would help so many people. So the president can do so much if you just get a decent person who's not corrupt, who believes in the right things and has leadership qualities. You can win. So I know this is goofy. I know this is like, it's a cheesy thing, but I always think of, whenever I think of how difficult the situation is and how terrible the landscape is right now and how we're so far behind where we need to be, what comes to my mind is Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and Tiger Woods and like the greatest athletes of all time. Because the thing that made them so great is that when the pressure ramped up, that's when they raised their level. Like MJ he had more points in the playoffs than he did in the regular season. And even the later it would go in the playoffs, I think his average went up. So in other words, when the pressure's on, when it gets harder, they get even better. And unfortunately, what you see a lot on the left is like, as soon as it gets hard, people are like, fuck it, I give up. We're done here. Or they want to immediately start from scratch. Like, okay, something's a little off here, so let's go right back to the drawing board and forget absolutely everything we've built up to this point. Don't reinvent the wheel. You go down in the trenches and you dig it out of the dirt. Like, you work harder. And so I think of the greats whenever I look at our barren wasteland of political landscape here, and that's something that gives me, the strength to keep going. If anything, I know it sounds weird, but it's almost like you view it as an opportunity. Oh, you're making it harder for me. Great. Time to work even harder and eventually kick your ass. That's the gist of it. And all you need to make all the change in the world that you can imagine is basically like a New Deal Democrat who is charismatic and likable. That's a very basic thing we oftentimes overlook in politics. Like, are you charismatic and likable? Okay, well, if you're charismatic and likable, then you're going to be a decent politician. Even if nothing else is there. On that alone, you can be a decent politician. We need a New Deal Democrat who's charismatic and likable, not insanely overly woke, which turns off the majority of the country, but is economically leftist and argues for those policies without being a weird niche lefty who's drenched in theory and loves to use scare words that Americans are turned off by. You know what I mean? That's another problem on the left is we have our niche subgroups and we oftentimes preach to the choir. Like, I want to be in an edgy subgroup. Okay, then you're not going to win. So you got to choose mainstream culture or edgy subculture. If you choose edgy subculture, fine, but don't pretend like you know what you're doing electorally. You know, you go out there and talk about fucking Lenin all you want. That's not going to win. That's not going to win anything for you. So I would drop all, I have no marriage at all to labels. None at all. So socialist, communist, anarchist, whatever, gone, not interested in it at all. I'll call myself a fucking moderate. I'll call myself whatever, as long as I can get in office and implement the policies that'll help Americans. So I would drop the edgy, lefty aesthetic, look super mainstream, be charismatic and likable, don't be overly woke, and just go all in on economic leftism and improving everybody's life and pushing for those policies. And then if you win that White House, you can make all the change in the world like that. So, point is, you can never give up. We don't have the luxury of giving up. And by the way, that's exactly what the establishment wants. They want you to give up. They want you to be a nihilist and lob bombs from the sidelines at your fellow lefties. They want you to do that. They want you to waste your time with something that can't even get off the ground, like a third party where you don't even have ballot access. They want you to do that. Yeah, go ahead. Waste all your energy over there where you're never going to move even 3 inches in the right direction. And great. Wonderful. And you guys fight amongst yourselves and we'll keep rigging the system and winning every time. So I don't want to give them what they want, ever. I want to be their worst nightmare. And what I outlined here are some of the ways in which we can be their worst nightmare. So don't let the doomerism get you. Don't let the political nihilism get to you. And the final point I'll make is this. Everybody feels it from time to time, of course. On my bad days, I feel like it. Everybody does. It's useless. What are we doing? We're wasting time. We're not getting anywhere. All that stuff. And the reason why it's so appealing is because it's rational and logical in many respects. But again, it's what they want. And I say, fuck them. And I say, you're going to make it harder for me? Great. It's an opportunity. Now I'll eventually kick your ass. And I'll get there. So you should rededicate yourself when the going gets tough. And what I gave you is a little bit of an outline here. Get involved. Oh, and of course, along with direct action, general strike too. If we could somehow get to the point where there's a general strike, that also can bring colossal change, even without changing the electoral situation where you have your allies in there or whatever. You can force a lot of changes. You just ground the fucking economy to a halt. So that's always an ace up our sleeve as well. But there you have it. No reason to give into the doomerism. No reason to give into the political nihilism. Work harder. Don't bitch. Don't moan. Take it on the chin and keep it moving. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.